Good morning, guys. Welcome to I Want to Believe chat show. My name is Peter Wren, and I'm with
Kathy Rogers
and Jason Hewlett.
I didn't expect that. I was like,
me either.
Straight over to you, Mike. Drop mic. So, how's your week been, guys?
Good. Busy, productive. You know the usual. Never ending.
Okay. So here's my story. So I was out about 8:30 this morning. No, I started about 8 o'clock out the front mowing the lawn. First time I've mowed the lawn in the house. And I bought a new lawnmower from Home Depot. And you know those the nut and bolt you get halfway up the lawnmower to keep the handle straight. I was mowing the lawn and I got halfway through and all of a sudden the side of the side of the arm just fell off, and I was like, well, where's the nut and bolt gone? So I'm looking around by the side of the lawnmower, and the handle was hanging off and stuff like that. So I was walking around for about 10-15 minutes, and I find the red bolt, but I can't find the nut. So then I'm looking, and I'm out there for another 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to have to improvise here. So I went into the garage and got some cable ties out, and I was tying the ends up. And then mowing the lawn, and I filled the bag up with grass, and I lifted the end up and I carried it. And then what it was last night, I mowed the back lawn and brought the bag around, and I left it there for the morning and turned it over on its side because I knew it was going to rain in case the rain got inside. I went over to the bag, and the nut was on top of the bag.
What? That's weird.
Like, you can strike me down. Like, honestly, the nut was sitting on top of the bag, and it was just like I didn't even go near it. Like I pushed my lawnmower around it. Like if you can visualize it, I put the bag by my front door, and I had to physically take the lawnmower around my car to get onto the front lawn, and it was just it was there. It was like, anyway.
Somebody's helping you do your chores.
I have no idea.
You've been having this on for a while, Peter, though. Like since we shot that episode, even before we shot that one upcoming episode there, like you've been having doors open, and there was that bang before we went on, which seemed pretty loud.
It was. There was that bang as well. But I have no idea what that is. But there's just like ever since because we filmed an episode of the show here on haunted objects, and I don't think that anything's been attached to the house or anything like that, and I don't need to call a priest out or anything like that. But ever since we had our show here, things have increased. Like there were things when I first moved in going on in the place and stuff like that, but it should definitely be interesting now. Like what's kind of going on, and it doesn't feel malicious or anything like that. So I'm just going to probably let it be. I'm not going to call everyone out and have like a house full of investors.
I still think we should do a live investigation, though. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. And I was thinking about setting that up, and we can do that off a StreamYard as well, and just have it up in any given. Like I can twin it off my phone as well, so that'd be good in that respect. So
it'd be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
What happens? You never know, right?
Totally. Okay, so this week's guest, meanwhile, back at the ranch, this week's guest is Angela Artuso, and she is a very good friend of mine that I met at TAPS when I joined TAPS. I think it was when I was a part of the TAPS family. I first met her about 7-8 years ago. Angela runs a team in New York, and she also has a gift, and also as well we have something in common in relation to a near-death experience. So we're going to have her on the show now to just go through exactly what's been going on.
Hey guys.
Welcome, Angela.
Hey Angela.
Hello, Angela.
Hello. Hey Pete.
Hey, welcome to the show. Angela, start from the beginning. How did it all start?
Oh gosh. Started since I was a young child. I saw things when I was young, so many different things that happened that I couldn't understand, and when you're 4, 5, 6 years old, you don't understand what these things are. You just see them happening. Sometimes you get scared. You can't contemplate what's happening. You can't make sense out of it. As I grew older, I noticed that there were some people who had the same issues that I had growing up, and it forced me to look into it further and look into the field more and more. So that's how, my story began, from a very young age, probably even before age 4. I was always seeing things as a child, things around my crib, things in my crib, things holding my toys. I would see people, especially once they passed on. I would be the one to see them. But they would be fleeting glimpses. I'd see them for a minute or two. They'd look at me, smile, and then they'd be gone. And this followed me all through my life. And eventually I reached the point where I created my own team and decided to go out and explore more with other investigators, other teams, and try to find some answers and try to help people who experience the same things that I experienced throughout my life, and help make their life a little easier and not have that fear, and try to understand it more.
Did your family know that you were seeing these as well, Angela? Like, were they pretty open to it, or how? Like, what was your experience as a child with that element of the family?
When I was really young, it was just like, oh yeah, okay, you have an imaginary friend. It wasn't an imaginary friend.
Right.
And as I got older, I would tell my mother or my father, I saw this and this happened, and yeah, okay, sure, whatever you say. No one really believed me. It wasn't until I got older that my mother confided into me that she heard the same things and saw the same things I did.
Right.
But she never told me when I was young. She told me years later, when I was getting more and more into the field. That's when she confided into me. But there were many, many times I'd go to sleep, even as a teen, many sleepless nights, because I'd be up hearing all the noises taking place outside my bedroom. My bedroom was off the stairs, and I would hear people coming up and down the stairs all night long. And those footsteps, they're very distinct footsteps. Yeah. We're not talking like a squirrel or a family pet. We didn't have any pets. And they were, so that was not the answer. But they were very distinct footsteps. And then there was always shuffling coming close to my bedroom door. And I had sliding wood doors to my bedroom. So I would hear the door slide.
Like the barn door?
Like sliding the barn style doors, like that type of door, and you'd hear it scrape a little bit on the top. So it was definitely my door. Yeah. The covers would go up over my head, and I'd be sitting there going, oh my God, I don't want to see what this is. The door would slide and then it would stop. Now that went on for years. That was my nightly bedtime ritual. Happened every single night. Never actually saw anything until one night when my grandfather had passed. I heard the footsteps coming up the stairs.
Yeah.
Saw the door slide. I was like, okay, here we go again. Door sliding. I'm not putting covers over my head at this point anymore because it was the ritual.
I'm so used to it. Yeah. It's like your nighttime bedtime.
Right. It's my bedtime ritual. People read a bedtime story. I get this. But so, in walks my grandfather, and I'm sitting up in the bed. And at this point, I can't speak. It's like there was like some kind of invisible divider between me and him. And he walked in, and he had a little square, they call it a scapula in Catholicism. It's a little religious paper medal, and it's on a ribbon. My grandfather was not religious, neither was my grandmother. But when I later found out the next day, when I was telling her about the story of him coming in the room, she told me that she gave the undertaker a scapula to put on him in the casket. And that's the one I described to her.
Wow.
But we couldn't communicate. He just looked at me, he looked down, and then he got up and he left. And that was it. So that was my real first interaction with someone who had passed.
It's interesting that you bring up about confiding into your mother. I did an interview with a podcast show probably about a couple of months ago, and like you, I had experiences when I was younger and stuff like that. But we were actually talking about my book, and the guy that was interviewing me kind of summarized it in a question, and he said, "Do you think that because you had that comfort in having those experiences when you were younger with your mother, that you kept that, you kept that in your mindset for when you got older, kind of thing, and it stayed with you, kind of thing. Because everyone's got that theory about your brain when you're born, you don't have that dismissive vision or anything like that, but you know, as you get older, you society, or your parents or whoever's around you, kind of embeds you that there's no such thing as ghosts and stuff like that, and your brain automatically switches it off. But I think with me, because like you as well, Angela, like my mother was around and we were seeing things when we were younger as well, and she was like, no, don't worry about it, it's natural, and she was there to kind of nurture me in those experiences more than anything else.
It's very true. Even now, like there's something in my home, and like you said, we discussed it earlier. It's haunted. There's something here, but you don't want to open up a can of worms, do a full scale investigation. No. Not worth it. It seems friendly and happy. But we'll be sitting eating dinner, and we're here walking around the house. And a couple of times, my one son has actually seen what I have seen in the house. We have a man that walks around the house. He goes from the lower level to the middle level of our house and just walks through, turns around and goes back downstairs. So we'd be watching a movie and it was so funny. And, he looks up, I look up, we both look at each other like, you saw that, right? And yeah, okay, go back to watching the movie. So that's how our life has become at this point. But it's true, like you're born into a society that says there's no such thing as ghosts. This doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. It's you. It's not. Then how do you explain, what so many people are experiencing?
Or you get the other side too, where they'll believe, but they always put it into like, oh, it's a demon. It's this, it's that. It's like, it can just be Aunt Betty. It's fine. It like it doesn't need to be this. It can be this, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it too, because our society is so scared of death, they don't want to acknowledge it, right? And I think a lot of people just push that out of their brains too, because they don't want it to be, they don't want to think about it, right? Because if there's dead people walking around, then that means we're all going to end up there. We're all going to be walking around dead one day. Like it's just a matter of fact, but no one likes to acknowledge that. So you're the weird one if you're talking about it, because no one wants to talk about it.
Even though they know it exists, and some of these people have had their own personal experiences, but they won't admit it. They're very tight-lipped on it, and
they find another reason or another excuse. And to your point, Jason, I think it kind of goes the opposite too, because you do have those people that no matter what you tell them, you could prove to them that the wind opened the door, or like this happened, or it was a mouse, or it was just human experience as opposed to paranormal experience, but they're so wanting to believe because of that same fear of death, right? Yeah. What if I die and there's nothing? So I'm going to just go overboard almost. And, like, I don't know how many times, and we've all gotten them, I'm sure, all of us being on teams. It's like, look at my picture of dust. I just vacuumed and look what happened. There's all this dust, all these orbs. Look at it's all my grandparents and family members. And you're like, or dust.
Or dust.
Or a bug.
That's why a healthy skepticism's needed too, right? Like you got to be open but skeptical about it, which we've talked about. All of us have talked about that many, many times. And you're right. I think there's the two camps in this. I'm sure, Angela, you've seen this as an investigator, right? Like, have you encountered people who just so want to believe, even though there's been no evidence to that? Like when you get called into an investigation?
Yeah, we've had quite a few of those. And they just don't drop it. They refuse to let it go. I had one complaint one time where this person had 52 demons in their home. And I'm like, what makes you think that there's 52? And how did you count 52 demons? Well, someone told me that the house had a demonic portal in the kitchen. And whenever I took milk out of the refrigerator, it activated the portal. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, you do the best you can to try to explain to these people, but they are set. There are some people who are completely set that they are locked into a demonic presence, and there isn't even a sign of a presence. It's just them. It's their lives falling apart that they need to shift around and get help with. And it has nothing to do with, the demon in your refrigerator. It's you got to sit down and think about it sometimes, but sometimes these people don't want to hear that. Yeah. And I don't mean to sound like insensitive, but when you have a whole family and now you're telling your kids that you have 52 demons, and you're calling in priests that aren't priests that are telling you have portals in 5 parts of your house and you can't stand in these portals and your kids can't play games in these portals. You just want to get them on the right track and, rebuild your life a little bit, get away from this demon stuff, walk away from it for a little bit, take a vacation, come back and just, do stuff with your family, do some fun stuff.
Yeah.
Get your life back in order. You don't have the demons. Demons aren't after you,
Some people are so scared of looking into their own issues that they have to create the external issues in order to make sense of what's going on. And it's like, there comes a point where you just can't.
Right. And you try to
guide them, but
right. But it's not their house that's haunted. This is a term where they're haunted. They're haunted by their inner demons, not demon per se, but your inner dark thoughts and things that you have to sort out.
Absolutely.
So you also you've also dragged your husband into this as well, Bill.
Oh, dragged him.
That was a treat.
But we look like a friendly fellow dragging.
It's so funny because we had an experience that involved him. The years ago when his father had passed. Now, before even telling you this, like Bill was always, his own thing. Like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. Paranormal is all your thing. He never had a paranormal experience or saw anything or heard anything that I heard ever. So, for a good portion, he thought I was a little bit kooky, but he's like, do your thing. So now we're at the point. Now his father was very ill. His father had passed. And we're, preparing the funeral services and everything. And, we go home that night after leaving the hospital. And we're in our bedroom. I wake up in the middle of the night and I see my father-in-law hovering over the side of the bed. And he's like in half. It's like from his hips up. And he's in a black tuxedo. He has a red handkerchief in his little pocket. And he's looking at me and he's like, hey, get a load of this stuff. Check me out. So I tried to talk to him, but I couldn't. Again, it was that communication thing. It was like a veil and I could not speak. I had no ability to speak whatsoever. And I just see him beaming in the brightest light that you could ever imagine seeing. Now, while I'm staring at him, my husband's out cold and I can't shake him and I can't wake him. And in the room looks like, when you put your TV on off channel and you have all that static and the snow, the whole room was full of that, flying throughout the room. The curtains were blowing and it sounded like a train was going through the room. The noise was deafening, but I was frozen. I don't know how long this went on for, but eventually he faded away and I woke up the next morning. I don't even remember going back to sleep. Everything just like stopped and I woke up the next morning. So I'm the first one down and I'm making my coffee, whatever. My husband comes down and he's like, I had the strangest dream. And I said, so did I. I said, I still can't tell if it was real or, it was one of those dreams that you could reach out and touch, but I'm like, it seems so real. And he said, yeah, he goes, I dreamt of my father. And I said, I saw your father last night too. And he said, it was strange. I tried to wake you up and I couldn't wake you up. And then I told him I tried to wake him up, but I couldn't wake him up. And he said his father was telling him everything that he needed to do, paperwork he needed to find, files he needed to find, and was just going everything through him. But again, he could not communicate. I told him what happened to me, and we both looked at each other and we were like a little off, like, what is it that we truly experienced? And we're looking at the clock. and our kids are still asleep upstairs. I'm like, this is unusual because they're hyperactive. They're usually up at 5 a.m. So, it's now like 11 o'clock and 10, 11 o'clock. I'm like, let me go up and check on them and see what's going on. And they're sobbing hysterically in the room. They won't come out of the room. And I said to my oldest, my little one was really little. He was only like 2 or 3. But I said to my oldest, who was about 7 at the time, and he said, I tried to get into your room last night. I couldn't get in. Everything was coming out of the room and the lights and the noise. And he was sobbing and I couldn't get in. I was pushed away and I wanted to save you. I thought, something was happening to you. And he was uncontrollably sobbing, but he saw it. He saw everything that I saw.
Was that his first time?
I'm sorry?
Was that his first time of witnessing the paranormal?
That was the official, classic bright light, seeing a spirit, and I had a witness to it. That was the first time that somebody actually saw what I saw at the same time. Right. It petrified the poor kid, but it's now, ever since that happened, though, it's very strange because he sees the same things I see now. So we're kind of one and the same now. Like, we can go places, I'll see something and he'll look at me and we'll nod. And it's like a connection now. It's very unusual. But it also made my husband a believer at that time that, hey, maybe there's more to this that I've always turned a blind eye to. It got him more interested, and that began our quest into learning more about this and, venturing into paranormal.
I find that the paranormal, it will make itself known if it's supposed to make itself known. I've heard lots of stories very similar, to, it's like my husband doesn't believe, and then suddenly, boom, something will happen. Or my wife is skeptical, but then boom, something will happen. And it's like, they want you to know. They want you to know they're there, and they're going to show themselves some way or another. I think it's amazing, though, that your son, is he part of the team?
Yes, both of them. 2 of my 3. My third one has an interest too, but he doesn't have the time just yet because he's still in college. Right. But they all have an interest because they've all had experiences. Yeah. So,
Yeah. My kids are the same. Mine are the same. They're very, intuitive and into the whole thing. So it's pretty cool. It's kind of nice when you can make it a family.
Well, for a while there, our vacations weren't very fun for them. Because where are we going now, Mom? What cemetery? Other kids go to Disneyland. How can we?
We're going to Waverly. We're going to go to this haunted museum.
We're going to go to an old smelly house.
And I feel kind of bad. One of the trips included, you staying over by the Lizzie Borden house, and they were like, oh. But it's like, get over it. I dealt with your cartoons. You can do this for Mom for a night. Come on.
Yeah.
But definitely got them seeing that there's more to the big picture. So much more out there that we don't know about. Just so much. And we have good conversations in our house.
It was funny because I took my son to Disneyland in 2015. And on the way down there, I was like, me being, the paranormal person, and, we're trying to make it a normal family thing. And I'm like, but let's go to the Winchester house, the Winchester Mystery House. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, can we just not? Just one? And I'm like, no. It's only 300 miles away from us. We're going.
I know.
So, Angela, when we talked to you before, you kind of shared with us a very intense experience you had.
Yeah.
Experience. I was wondering if you'd be able to share that a bit with us.
Sure.
Now. Well, yeah.
I think you were the only ones that I've kind of shared this with. This was a big one for me. I was in a car accident years ago, and I was hit by a truck. Oh. And it was winter time. I had a scarf. You tie a knot in your scarf. So when the truck hit, my scarf caught on the truck grill because it smashed in, and it just hooked on the truck grill, and it was taking me with it, just getting tighter and tighter around my neck and pulling. Everything happened so fast that I can't even tell you the scheme of things of what happened. But after it was done, I know I was all broken up. I had a lot of breaks. I couldn't breathe and I couldn't move. And I couldn't even move my arms to get the seatbelt unhooked. I couldn't even get out of the seatbelt. I was just locked. And when I looked to my left, I saw a man sitting in the car. And he was in all black. Black hair, slick, not a hair out of place. Black eyes. You couldn't see his sclera, the white of the eye. Couldn't see that. It was all black. Almost like the images that you see of black-eyed children, those type of black eyes.
Right.
Flawless skin, like porcelain, and black tie, black shirt, black everything, black leather jacket, black everything, just standing straight ahead. And I'm saying to myself, this is it. I'm gone. This is my time. And I remember looking at him, but he would not look at me. He just looked straight ahead. And he said, no, not yet. It's not your time. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? He's not really talking to me. Who is he? I just want to get out of here. And I had to wait because I had to be cut out. And I looked at him again and I said, I know I'm going. I know I'm going. And he said, no, I'm here with you. I'm staying with you. And you're not going anywhere. And I remember dozing in and out a little bit. I was fully conscious, but I was just in so much pain. And they finally got me out. They put me on the ambulance. And he came in the ambulance with me. Well, they were trying to contact my family. He came in the ambulance with me. And he held my arm. And he just had one hand on my arm. And he stayed the whole time. And he was trying to keep me awake because I kept wanting to go to sleep. And he says, no, I'm here. You're going to stay awake through the ride till we get to the hospital. And you're not going anywhere. I got you. Always remember that. I got you. And I was like, okay. And I started to feel better in the ambulance. And when we got to the emergency room and they were taking me out, I said, where is he? Because I noticed he was missing. They said, where is who? I said, the man that was with me in the car and the man that was with me in the ambulance. I wanted to thank him for staying with me. And they said, there is nobody with you. There was no one in that car and there was no one in the ambulance. It was just us. And there was nobody here that even fit his description. And to this day, I don't know what that was, who that was. It was the oddest thing. But whatever it was, it brought me tremendous peace at that moment. But I have no explanation for it. So I don't know what was it. I mean, sometimes people say you have a guardian angel. Sometimes you say you have a spirit guide. Was it that? Was it something else? I don't know. I just don't know.
When we did speak about this before, and it's inspired. Well, Jason came up with the idea about our next book, writing about stories like yourself and stories like mine as well. When you were going through that whole experience, describe your feeling. How did you feel that time? Was it kind of like a euphoric, like everything's going to be okay kind of thing?
I didn't. It was weird because different things started coming into my mind. Not your average type of worry. It was just like, okay, I'm done here. I'm going someplace else. And, am I still here? Or did I go someplace else now and not realize that I'm in that other place? Like right. I was very off. I was very out of it. And I couldn't tell where I was. And again, that veil came over again. And it's that, I can't even describe it. It's almost like you cannot communicate to somebody. It's like a whitish, staticky veil. And you're kind of like in a holding place. I can't describe it. It's, for me, it was that way anyway. It's like you're just kind of there waiting. And then all of a sudden it lifts and there's a change. I thought I was dying. I really did think I was dying because I couldn't breathe. And I knew I was badly broken up. I knew that. And I was like, I know I need surgery. This is not a good thing. But the other weird part about it was when I went to after I got to the hospital and they did my scans, they didn't find anything broken on me. They found everything broken on me 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later. So I don't understand what happened there. How can 6 doctors have a different report 4 weeks later. Because then they saw that my whole chest was broken, ribs were broken, my lower spine was broken. How do you not see that in an emergency room? Do you know what I'm saying? So there's so much I don't understand. Did he do something while he held my hand? Because all I kept thinking about that time was, I just want to go home. I want to see my kids. I want to see my kids. I don't want to be here. I need my kids. And that was the only thing that really kept me going throughout the whole thing. I need to see my kids. I don't want to stay here, because if I stay here, I will die. I have to get out and see my kids. So whoever that person was, did something happen that allowed me to leave the hospital so I could see my kids and then let me deal with everything after the fact? I don't know.
So did you need surgery after, or like?
They repaired my arm there in the emergency room, because my arm was torn from my shoulder all the way down to my wrist. So, I lost a lot of portion of use of my arm and everything. And the most horrible thing was, they didn't want to put me under anesthesia because they also thought I broke my neck.
Right.
So they were afraid to put me under, so I couldn't be anesthetized for this, but they were running their fingers through the bone and the nerves in my arm, and I thought I was going to die. I was just like, okay, I'm ready now. I wasn't ready before, I'm ready now. But everything else, it just said I'm in a tremendous amount of pain, but no one believed me. And it wasn't until I went for further scans that they saw why I was in the tremendous amount of pain. But that took me over 6 months to a year to recover from. And I was pretty much changed after that. I do have to say, it changed me. There were a lot of things that I look at differently since that time. Certain things just don't affect me or faze me, much anymore. I take things to heart more, because I know the importance. I know the importance of, your family and your kids. And so I hold those things tight, but I still don't know what that was, and it never returned. And, but I don't know. I mean, I've gone to mediums, and I've had readings, and they said that there's somebody with me all the time that follows me, that stays on my side, that's always with me. Is it that person? I don't know.
So I do mediumship as well. And the first thing I actually heard was this was a guide. So, I heard that he's actually been with you like all of your life. Like this is an actual guide that's but you needed it at that time. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. I absorb all this. And even when I do the investigations, a lot of people notice that I don't actively speak right away when we're on an investigation. I scan. I scan who I'm with. I scan the building. I scan the rooms, any objects that are in the room. Like I can touch them and feel. I can't tell you who they belong to. I can't say, oh, this is Uncle Morris or Aunt Harriet. I'm not like that, but I am sensitive. I am very empathic. So it doesn't take much for me to pick up or read something right away. And that has become even more so since that incident. So, ever since that incident happened, everything changed in my life after that.
Oh, I'm sure. That's amazing.
There's a lot of, like we had this conversation before, there's a lot of parallels with what happened to me as well with you. And with me, when, like, it was just, I told you about it before, it was my second coma, and I went down for I was out for like over 24 hours. And I remember this as clear as day. And I met this one person, and I later figured out that it was my grandfather, even though I've never met him or anything like that. I remember the feeling. It was just that, like I wanted to pass over, and he was saying no, and he was getting very angry with me because I said I wanted to go, with my mum and dad and stuff like that. But at that time, and I kind of felt guilty about it as well, because I had no, I don't know what the right word is. I had no remorse about leaving my kids behind, if that makes sense. But I did think of them, but it was like, that where I was going to go to was a better place for me, if that makes sense, in a non-selfish way. And it was just that, it was that kind of that feeling that everything now is going to be okay. And he was like, no, you're not going to go anywhere. And to the point he was shouting at me, and I was like, okay. He sounds a lot like me, so he's obviously not my grandfather. But yeah, no, interesting for sure. Interesting.
It is. Like you said, you had no hesitation for leaving your kids. It's an odd feeling to share with somebody or try to explain to somebody what that feeling is. You don't want to leave them.
No.
But you're in that, like I said, that veil where you want to go. You just want to go. But then you're pulled back. But you want to go. It's a very odd feeling, like you don't really know what's going on. But I can definitely relate to that and understand that. And then when you snap out of it, the first thing you want to see is your kids and your family. You know, when
but it was during that, like I said, it kind of made me feel guilty when you were the one that actually spiked me thinking about it even more and more. But it was just that feeling I had, where it's not like I didn't care about the people I left behind, but where I was going to go to was a better place, and I had that guilt, and I had that guilt when I suddenly started thinking about things after we spoke about it as well. And it's like I really thought that, but I guess it's that it's that unknown, right? It's like you don't know what the process is or anything like that. The only way that we can the only way we can quantify it is just by trying to explain it to people. But if they haven't been through that, it's not something that they can kind of grasp. It's not a secret club or anything like that. But it's only to be into that experience is just it's unique for sure.
It's definitely one that's extremely hard to explain to someone who's never experienced anything like that. And it's when you find someone who has had that shared experience, is like a bond. I can't explain it, but it's like, yep, I'm with you. Got it. We've been through this together, and I can't explain it. It's just something just can't explain.
Do you find all this, like, from the experience that others have had, do you find they're very similar in what you experienced?
I do. Even as Pete says what happened to him, his experiences, they're very similar. And even people I've spoken to and people that are our clients, they're all very similar. And some of them, not all of them see somebody, but they all seem to say they have like that veil type of thing, or, they question us about it. And, it's a personal experience. I mean, you can't really comment much on someone else's experience, so you can try to help them, talk them through it and try to help them make sense of it. But it's difficult. And like I said, unless you've actually experienced it yourself, it's hard to tell a family, what's going on with so-and-so, because they can't absorb that. They can't understand. Right. And even like with my husband, when I told him the experiences I had when I was a child, he's like, like he couldn't comprehend it. You got your classic skeptic, so here we were married, it was this. No, it wasn't that. It was that, so it was like, until he had his first experience, it was only then could he understand and be more open to other ideas and thought processes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Angela, with us again.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. No, we're going to ask you the third time to go through that when we write it. Just be prepared. You're going to go through it again. It's like, I've already told you guys this.
Guys, listen to the original recordings.
Yeah. Well, this is the only time I've really spoken about it to anybody, because
it means a lot that you did share it with us too, because that, it's such a vulnerable experience, right? And it's allowing yourself to go into that place where you're open for the skepticism, you're open for, the doubters and all of that. And so when you're able to share that, like, what a privilege it is for us to be able to hear your story.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Yeah. It also helps when you share it with people who've had similar experiences too. So it would be a whole different forum if I was on with several skeptics. It'd be a lot different.
Yeah. It'd be like, were you drunk? Were you taking drugs?
Yeah.
What
were you drinking that day?
Yeah. You're on medication. What's in your medicine cabinet? Do you have any mental illnesses you didn't mention?
Yeah.
For the record, I don't.
My favorite one is are you seeking attention for something? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You
Yeah.
think you're just looking for attention. It's like, no, piss off.
It's funny, my son is 16 and he sees, things, not so much as now, but when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he had to, he has a very, very high IQ. So he had to go to a school to, kind of to test his IQ and stuff like that, because he was like advanced,
Right.
And I remember him telling the teachers, but I'm not getting enough sleep because that man keeps coming into my room at night and waking me up. Well,
it sounds like my son. It sounds
you can imagine how that went over, right? And they're like, what is, and you're trying to explain, and I mean, they're just looking at you like you're mental, like, like what is this woman doing to her kid, or who's this strange guy that's coming into their house in the middle of the night? Like, it was a trial. It was trial and error.
It was, and I know what you're talking about because I went through that with my kids, especially my oldest, and it's I had problems with school. A lot of these people, narrow-minded, they thought, they're in Catholic school, and they're hearing certain things here and there. Oh, mom's doing a paranormal investigation.
Right. Yeah. Same here.
I had a lot of problems, and I had to leave. I had to leave one school. And, it was unfairly justified, but people's narrow minds,
I actually, the way that so one of the things that actually happened in order to help all of that is his kindergarten teacher, because he was, his kindergarten teacher had actually said to me, is your son, she goes, it's very taboo and I really shouldn't be talking about it, but have you ever heard of an indigo child? And she goes, the things that your son picks up and knows, and she's like, he walks up to kids and just says, sorry, you got into trouble last night. Sorry, you got a spanking. Sorry about your flat tire. Sorry. And so because when you're trying to explain this to these counselors, and I said, could you just talk to his kindergarten teacher, because she knows what and she did. She opened up and said, these are the things that he would do when I had him in my, so they still didn't get it, but they knew that I wasn't like abusing him.
Yeah. So always, get scared with this stuff. It's just like, but yeah.
It's quite a thing. How many investigators do you have on your team?
I think we're up to 12. We didn't hit the lucky 13 yet, but we're up to 12, and we do the best we can. I mean, we've been limited because of the COVID, so everybody's kind of just been doing their own thing for the last few months. But we're back in the swing now, so slowly, just making sure that wherever we go, we keep those people protected, and just pretty much trying to. Through the COVID, we did a lot of phone support and research for people, but there was one client that I was working with for about 6 months during the whole COVID. And all of a sudden they decided to not proceed with any investigation, because what we were going to do is, once everything cleared, come out to the house with the cameras and everything and do a full-scale investigation. I spent numerous hours doing research for this family and whatnot, and in the end, they said, you know what, we had a priest come in, and the priest said that if he's going to continue speaking with us, he's not going to come to the house anymore or help us. He found 12 portals in my house. We're going to work with the priest to find the portals, and he says, you're all Satan, so you're not allowed to come back.
That's cool.
So, at that point, it was like, listen, do not give this person money. That's my biggest concern, that this person's going to hit you with a $5,000 bill when you're done. Just be cautious of that. And if that's your right, if that's what you want to do, but please be cautious, what else are you going to do?
Or it's going to be a never-ending portal situation. It's going to be over here. Oh, there's one on the ceiling, and look, there's the toilet. There's a big portal in the toilet.
and he also told them that they had demons in the house too, and us coming in was going to create a cycle of never-ending demons and not close the portals. And it was just so wrong in every sense of the word. It was just wrong. And, I had a nice talk with the guy, but he said his wife was petrified now because she believes the priest. So she doesn't want to take any chances. And, what are you going to do, right? You respect your client's wishes. And we tried to help. I said, we're here if there becomes a big mess. So.
In that case, it's just more like priest. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
priest. He was no real priest. I don't know one priest that walks around going, there's a portal, there's a portal, there's a devil, there's a devil, I don't know.
It's the last thing they jump to or even want to talk about.
Right.
It's probably a priest that's on Facebook.
Yeah. Who got his degree through the mail.
Demon by YouTube.
Yeah.
For $500, he can exercise any demon for you.
And I even said, what church is he affiliated with? And they said, well, he has his own church. I'm like, there we go. There we go.
So did Manson.
So did Manson, yeah. But it's just so much wrong information out there. It's just,
It's funny. I do. Well, I've done some work over the years with an ordained priest down in Washington State, and it's funny that he comments about. He's not on social media or anything like that. He said that just the amount of exorcists you can get online and stuff like that now, and it's just like, for freak's sake, it's just the whole stigma of what like ordained priests used to do like 10, 15 years ago has just been totally blown out of proportion with like TV and stuff like that. Now everyone can go out and buy a collar and just claim that they're an exorcist or they're a priest and stuff like that. It's a total shambles in that respect. But that's why me and Jason laugh about demons and stuff like that. And for what the sense being is, I don't believe in the stuff that you see on TV. That people suppose, the things that happen and stuff like that. But in cultures, demons do exist in different ways. So there is that narrative on that as well. But it's just nonsense.
It is. I mean, I have, I know some people who have their own church. They have, but they do it in a sensible way, along with an investigation. And they don't go around frightening people, taking money from people. No. There's a difference. There's a difference there. They just want to do good for the family, and they have good intent. But there are people out there that have malintent, and wouldn't think twice of charging a family, $5,000, $10,000, and have them return to make sure their demons are gone. It's sad.
We had a team here in Edmonton that very similar, kind of thing. She would go over there and, apparently clear, and she wouldn't go back, if the people were still experiencing, activity or whatever. But they actually made it so bad in the city that we couldn't get into a lot of these haunted older, historical buildings or places like that. And it wasn't until we really had to prove ourselves, through reputation, that we were starting to we were able to get into these places. And actually some of them even invited us just because of reputation. But she had really destroyed a lot of the, it just basically making, the paranormal or paranormal research, she just destroyed it. And it was sad. It was really, really sad. And that she was charging, a lot. And, so there was a lot of issues that were created through that. I like Mr. Dave's comment on here. He says the Church of Holy Camoli. It's like,
well said, Dave.
Well, thank you, Angela. Thanks for joining us on our show. And thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
Pleasure.
Angela. We will talk again.
It was such a pleasure to meet you, Angela.
Nice seeing you all again. And again, many thanks.
Okay, guys, stay tuned for the next I Want to Believe chat show next week with our next guest.